At 6:30 in the morning on September 2nd, 2025, a single alert flipped the calm inside a US operations center. One target, one speedboat, a Venezuelan craft, tearing across the Caribbean Sea like it had something to outrun. Its engines screamed at full throttle, slicing a bright white scar into the water. The men on board were calm, almost casual. To them, this was routine. They had done this route before. They thought they knew the ocean. But from the moment that boat moved, its fate was already decided. Because the freedom they thought they had, it wasn't real. The ocean around them had become a mapped battlefield, a trap designed long before they left the shoreline. High above the earth, American satellites locked onto the boat's glowing exhaust trail. They tracked more than heat. They tracked movement patterns, radio chatter, even tiny chemical traces floating behind the engines. The smugglers had no idea how exposed they were. At 25,000 feet, a US Navy P-8 Poseidon flew a slow circle, acting as the quiet brain in the sky. Its radar swept hundreds of miles of open water in seconds. Whenever the smugglers shifted direction, the Poseidon shadowed them. Whenever they sent a quick encrypted message home, the aircraft caught it, stored it, and added it to a growing intelligence picture that had already marked the boat as a high-value target. And while the crew stared at empty horizon, believing they were alone, a US Navy destroyer was already moving into position. At first, it was only a tiny shape, blending into the blue distance. But that shape carried 9,000 tons of steel, advanced radar systems, and firepower that could erase a target without ever getting close. To the smugglers,
to the US Navy, the operation was already in the endgame. The moment the boat crossed into a designated killbox, the outcome became unavoidable. A killbox isn't dramatic in US doctrine, it's mathematical. Once you enter it, layers of sensors, aircraft, ships and weapons overlap until escape stops being possible. The smugglers didn't stumble into danger. They stumbled into a system designed to eliminate options. Satellites kept tracking heat and emissions. The Poseidon watched movement and intercepted communications. The destroyer collected radar data and shared it across the fleet. It didn't matter if the boat turned north-south or sprinted for the Venezuelan coast. Every choice had already been mapped, predicted, and prepared for. When the final authorization came, it was quick and calm. No dramatic radio calls, no chase, no warnings. The decision moved through the chain, and moments later, the destroyer unleashed a precision strike that turned the boat into burning wreckage. The men on board never saw it coming. For the US, it was a clean operation. For Venezuela, it was a spark that ignited a political firestorm. Washington announced the strike within hours. Officials labeled the vessel a cartel-linked boat tied to Tren de Aragua. They said it carried narcotics and operatives, and that the kill prevented a large trafficking movement. 11 suspected cartel members were reported dead. But Caracas exploded in anger. Nicolas Maduro went live on television, calling it murder and a violation of sovereignty. He claimed the men were Venezuelan citizens killed without trial.
Porque el video muestra modificación de inteligencia artificial. Sí la muestra. Todo el mundo lo sabe. No lo digo yo. Yo no soy Gemini. Yo soy Maduro. Lo dice Gemini. Lo dicen muchos mecanismos. En segundo lugar, hay videos muy parecidos a la trayectoria del video en cuestión que le pusieron en la mano al presidente Trump y le publicaron en su cuenta, que se parecen a videos de otros años, 2020, 2021, de otros lugares del mundo, en el mundo por allá árabe. Y en tercer lugar está el debate sobre si fue verdad.
State media blasted footage of jets and troops suddenly on alert, framing the US strike as an attack on the nation.
Behind the speeches and threats, the truth was harsher. Venezuela couldn't fight the US head-on, so it turned to provocation. 3 days after the strike, 2 Venezuelan F-16Es flew dangerously close to the USS Jason Dunham. The flyby was so low, the shockwaves rippled across the water. Caracas called it defiance. The US called it reckless. But behind all the noise, the Navy did what it always does. It collected data radar signatures, radio traffic, engine patterns. Everything went into American systems. And the US wasn't bluffing either. Within a week, 10 F-35s deployed to Puerto Rico, a short flight from Venezuelan airspace. The message was clear. If Caracas wanted to push the situation, Washington was ready to push back harder. Regional governments began to worry shipping routes were adjusted. Diplomats requested emergency briefings. One destroyed speedboat had turned into a potential regional crisis, and all of it started from a single fast-moving boat that never stood a chance. By the end of the first week of September, the Caribbean looked peaceful on the surface. But beneath that calm, the balance of power had shifted. A small cartel operation had pulled 2 nations into a dangerous standoff. For the smugglers, the ocean was supposed to be an escape for the US Navy. It was a controlled environment, a place where satellites, aircraft, and warships connected into one lethal web. And for Venezuela, the event became a mirror showing just how outmatched it truly was. Their speeches couldn't hide the aging jets, the outdated navigation systems, the lack of modern equipment. Every attempt to look strong gave the US even more intelligence than before. And that's the real story here. The strike wasn't just an attack. It was a data harvest that exposed routes, voices, frequencies, tactics, and command patterns that will be useful for years.
Before we wrap up, I want to hear from you. Do you think the US was justified in the strike? Or do you believe the response pushed this too close to a larger conflict? Tell me your thoughts in the comments. I'm genuinely curious how you see it. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to hit like. Don't forget to subscribe for more in-depth stories and drop a comment with your take on this standoff. Your opinion adds a lot to these discussions, so don't hold back.